And to discuss the implications of the conflict in Syria and elsewhere, we're joined now by Stephen J Rapp, the United States Ambassador at Large for Global Criminal Justice in the US State Department. Welcome to Lateline. Thanks for being there.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Emma.
Now, how will justice be achieved for the people of Syria?
Well, the best way is at the national level after a transition, after Assad goes, after there's a democratic government formed, when the Syrian people can judge these cases for themselves. That certainly would be our preference, and it's always our preference if you can do it at the national level. When's
that likely to happen?
Well, it's going to take some time, but clearly this regime has lost all its legitimacy. It's doubled down on brutality and duplicity. It has a situation where where people are ready to go out in the streets across the country if they don't face brutal repression, and its days are numbered.
The UN envoy Kofi Annan, as we just heard, says a full-scale civil war is imminent. What is the US prepared to do to stop that?
Well, we're working diplomatically. Obviously, this issue requires other countries to work with us, including Russia, China, and the neighbors, to achieve a plan for a peaceful transition. That has to happen, and we continue those efforts. But this brutal repression, and we've had this 6-point plan that's being implemented or attempted to be implemented through the good work of Kofi Annan. There's been just a complete defiance of it by the Syrian side. No moving of the heavy weapons. We had some diminution in violence after the monitors began to be deployed, but now we've had these horrendous massacres, and the monitors themselves are being obstructed in doing their job, and it's time that the mandate that was provided by the international community with unanimity is enforced.
There's been a call by Kofi Annan also to set up a working group of countries representing both sides of the conflict to sort of navigate a solution, and he cited Iran as an important part of that solution. Do you agree that Iran has a role to play in solving this crisis?
Well, we're working through this. Obviously, we find that Iran has not played a helpful role. It's been providing support to elements there that are engaged in this repression. But obviously, we want to work on a diplomatic solution, and discussions on that are ongoing. My own responsibility and work deals with this issue of accountability, with sending the signal that these brutal acts, the indiscriminate attacks with heavy weapons on civilian neighborhoods, but even in a way that's just so unthinkably brutal, the attacks on children, like the attack that we had on May 24th in El Hula with 49 children under the age of 10 stabbed and punctured and killed in the most brutal ways, and now we have reports of a similar incident in the last 2 days. And what we're doing in this regard, of course, is insisting that there be access by the UN monitors that are there. There was a resolution that passed the Human Rights Council 41-3 last Friday, insisting that a mission as part of this International Commission of Inquiry established by the Human Rights Council have access to El Hula to be able to show what the facts are in order to develop in a professional way a report on what's happening there, and it's absolutely essential that there be access. And we're also supporting the idea of a Syrian Justice and Accountability Center, which we're contributing to ourselves, but which we want to work with Syrians and people in the region and other partners to document these abuses, send a clear signal that violations on either side are not going to be tolerated, and that the day of justice and reckoning will arrive, and that there will be cases to answer for people that led and were involved in these mass crimes, and information that can help establish the truth through other means of national reconciliation.
But isn't it true that the longer this goes on, the more difficult it becomes to establish criminal responsibility, and therefore, given also the staunch resistance to sanctions by Syrian allies, China and Russia, will the US and its allies now consider acting outside the auspices of the United Nations Security Council?
Well, we're at this time we're working diligently within the UN Security Council. Certainly, the messaging, some of the public messaging we're getting from Russia clearly recognizes that this regime, that there needs to be a transition from the regime that is there. The most important thing is that this violence stop and engaging through the United Nations, through the Security Council is our preference. But clearly we've got horrendous things going on, and it's the responsibility of the Syrian government to protect its own people. But as the UN unanimously recognized in 2005, when a country fails in the responsibility to protect its citizens, when it's perhaps even implicated in efforts to attack its citizens, then the responsibility shifts to other countries in the region and eventually to the international community to take action as a moral and legal imperative.
You served as the prosecutor of the Special Court for Sierra Leone from 2007 to 2009. This was responsible more recently for convicting former Liberian President Charles Taylor. But a decade after the International Criminal Court was established, there's only been 2 judgments. Why is its record so poor in your view?
One thing to make clear, I opened the case against Charles Taylor, is that case was tried by a special court for Sierra Leone, not by the ICC, though we moved the Taylor case to The Hague, where we opened it there in June of 2007, using one of their available courtrooms. So the ICC has indeed had one judgment, but I think it's important to note that it's issued warrants or summons in, I think, cases of 23 individuals. It's moving in 7 situations. It has a chief of state, Laurent Gbagbo of Cote d'Ivoire, in custody. It has another case of 2 warlords in the eastern DRC, ready for judgment that's now concluded in trial. And it is beginning to get traction. Of course, we note that the United States is not a member. Australia is. 121 countries are in the court. And our position in this administration has not been to join the court, but to engage more actively with it and on a case-by-case basis to look for ways that we could help it succeed. The courts like the Special Court for Sierra Leone or the Yugoslavia or Rwanda Tribunal are largely completed their work and will be closed within the next couple years. And the world looks to the ICC as the court where justice can be delivered at the international level when it cannot be delivered at the national one.
Now, you talked about the US not being a subscriber to this system, but of course many suggest that it should be. I mean, there is a view that it would have been more transparent, for instance, and less politicised to have had US troops tried at the ICC rather than within America when it comes to the issues of torture and killing of Iraqis, for instance, during the Iraq War.
Well, understand that even if the United States were part of the ICC, as Australia is, the obligation is on a state to prosecute its own. You've had cases, unfortunate cases, where people have been accused of committing crimes, say, in Afghanistan. We've had similar cases, like the recent one of Sergeant Bales. It's the obligation of every country to prosecute its own, and the ICC only gets involved if the state is unable or unwilling. And so our position in this administration is the United States will always pursue cases that in which it's alleged that there's been violations of laws regarding genocide or war crimes or crimes against humanity against our own, and never give reason why anyone would have grounds to take a case to the international level against an American.
Now, just finally, Libya is in the category of those that is currently in dispute with the ICC about where the jurisdiction lies to try Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam. Now, you're supporting Libya on that front, but are you confident that Saif al-Islam Gaddafi can be guaranteed a fair trial in Libya?
I do want to be clear. I was quoted. There was a headline in a recent report in a newspaper that indicated that I'd indicated we were giving unqualified support to the Libyans. But if you read what we said, it was that under Resolution 1970 of the UN Security Council, which passed 15-0, Libya must cooperate with the ICC, and of course an ICC arrest warrant has been issued, and there's a process in the ICC for determining whether that case could be brought back to Libya. Libya is engaged in litigation at the moment. We're not prejudging that. In principle, we would like to see them succeed. We want them to be able to prove to the judges that they can conduct a process that meets their international obligations and standards of fair process. And together with the UN mission in Libya, we're prepared to work with them on detention issues, other issues, to help them meet that standard. That's our preference. We'd like them to succeed, but obviously that question of whether they've met that standard is a question for the judges. And it's not, I should note, under, at least as I understand it, the law of the ICC, necessary to show it's the same kind of trial that a person would have in The Hague. The national systems are different and follow different rules, and there's I think a broad range of processes that could fit the bill. But it is important that he have counsel, that he have time to facilities to prepare, that there be a process where he can only be found guilty if there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt, where he has appeal, where the conditions of his detention meet standards. And so these are all things that are international obligations that Libya and other countries have undertaken, and this will be important as we go forward.
Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Stephen J Rapp, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Okay, great to talk with you.